not just about pizza culture, but culture and in general, and our thoughts about ourselves and our fellow Americans in the rest of the country. And that's part of what I really love about, I think what both Alfred and I both love about this podcast is that looking at pizza, looking at life through the lens of pizza. And Alfred.
Let's talk about the Pizza Pod Party podcast. And we're going to kind of reiterate a little bit. Arthur, tell me a little bit about your pizza story, if you could.
My pizza story in a nutshell is writing a list of the 35 best pizzas in America. That turned into 101 best pizzas in America because of the traffic that was associated with this. I became obsessed with writing about pizza across the country, and then not just writing about it, but visiting these places in person. And then that turned into writing about a different slice in almost every day for NYC Best Pizza, writing for a whole bunch of different pizza publications, but ultimately to Alfred as a co-host of a radio show at Sirius XM, where he was doing a kind of one-off pizza episode with a co-host. And that led to the idea of Pizza Pod Party as a podcast. But my journey has fully I've become full peak Arthur, as I like to say, by joining Uni Pizza Ovens as their head of pizza content.
Yeah, that is quite an honor and quite a great job. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Alfred, tell me a little bit about your pizza journey. I know you might be married to an Italiano there.
I am. That's probably the biggest street cred I have, that and just hanging out with Arthur. So I don't really have a pizza journey. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I was the type of kid that would just order sort of a Domino's pizza growing up. Not the most sophisticated palate, but I got really into deep dish as I grew up, which I think it's kind of a food for older people, I think. And moved out to New York City. I was a broadcast journalism major, done radio for almost 20 years and also podcasts. And I really enjoyed the sort of discussion of pizza. As you mentioned, I'm married to a woman. We would debate Chicago versus New York style pizzas. But then I hosted a show called Sit Down with Alfred and Chris on Sirius XM. And my partner and I, Chris Hassa, we had a show that was largely pop culture, a little bit of lifestyle, but it was a lot about fandom. And we thought it'd be interesting to do a whole live hour of nothing but pizza and just sort of throw caution to the wind and see what happens, and to sort of experiment. And I had come across Arthur's writings, and I thought he'd be maybe good to sort of help almost moderate the conversation a bit and give us some credibility. And we did it. We had a ton of phone calls. We had a lot of fun. And we decided to do it a few more times. And then Arthur and I sort of had a few pizza meetings ourselves. And then sort of in between jobs, he and I met up and really concocted this whole thing. And we started about 4 years ago, which is crazy to think. We had some ups and downs. We had a lot of momentum early on, but then a thing called the pandemic happened, and it canceled some of our meetings that we had with some big name groups, and we had to sort of shelve this for a bit. So we were able to get started again once Arthur got his job at Uni, which seemed like a great fit for all of us. And here we are starting the Pizza Pod Party.
Wow, that's great. And here we are talking about pizza, which is my favorite subject. So, Arthur, what are some of your earlier memories of pizza?
It's funny you mentioned that, and we just kind of discussed this on a recent episode. I think my pizza cognition slice, to throw back to Sam Sifton from the food section at the New York Times. It was really probably this place called Violetta's on the South Shore of Long Island. In it's a strip mall, kind of next to Peking Empire Chinese restaurant and the movie theater that you'd go to on a Friday, and orange booths, pizza grease, red cups. It was a sloppy, thin, very cheesy and delicious slice that I remember burning the roof of my mouth over and over and over again. I never learned. Okay. I still don't. And that's probably the place that I most associate with that. It's since closed many years ago.
Right. But just to reiterate a little bit, the pizza cognition theory states that your first pizza, maybe like your first girlfriend, you hold in high esteem. You never forget it. It's seared in your brain and in your heart, correct? Is that basically it?
It's the slice against which all other slices will be judged, is the way I like to say.
Right. Okay. Do you have one, Alfred?
So, I mean, as I mentioned before, growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, my family would make fun of me because we actually lived close to really great pizzerias. And if I was left to my own devices, I would often order Domino's, and I always got made fun of for that. As I got older, I grew a little bit more sophisticated, and there was a pizza place close to my house growing up in Lake Bluff, Illinois, called the Silo. And this place is this rustic, almost dive bar, but large. It looks like a barn. Truly, it has a silo. And it's got like Chicago Bears memorabilia everywhere. And back in the day, it was a kind of a place where some of the Bears players would hang out occasionally.
Cool.
And it's a really cool spot. And they do deep dish in this way that's a bit more doughy, that is more like it's definitely deep dish, but it almost doesn't seem as deep dish.
Right.
You don't necessarily need a knife and fork. And for whatever reason, the ambiance, the pizza, I think about it a lot.
Okay.
It is my favorite pizza I've ever had, and I think we'll ever have. So
Okay,
the
that's
Silo in Lake
fantastic.
Bluff, Illinois is mine.
All right. I would dispel one of the big things about Chicago is talking to Jonathan Porter of Chicago Pizza Tours. He explained to me that only 15% of the pizza in Chicago is deep dish.
That makes sense.
The rest of it is, the Chicago tavern style or other neo-Neapolitan styles of pizza. Just wanted to kind of add that in there.
Well, one of the reasons why we started this podcast is, at least from my perspective, was reminding myself, or really sort of figuring out, that the biggest difference between Chicago and New York isn't necessarily their taste in pizza. It's the culture in which they eat pizza. So Chicagoans, when it comes to deep dish, they probably only have deep dish 4 times a year, 5 times a year.
Okay.
And their other pizzas are just sort of come and go at parties and things like that. But deep dish is, and I think that's a big misconception. You eat it totally differently. It's an event. And I think New Yorkers don't really understand that concept. And in reverse, the Chicagoans don't understand how you could have this everyday slice, how that could compete with the thing they put on such a pedestal, this deep dish.
And I would have to say that one of the big differences, other than taste, is the prep time. When you order a deep dish, you're waiting 30 to 40 minutes. Is that correct? I mean, it doesn't come right out.
Totally. Yeah.
You walk into a New York slice joint, you got it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So that it really becomes quite an event. And that's really interesting, which is fantastic. We can get into the nuances of deep dish versus New York, whatever. Personally, I've had deep dish. I like it. I think it's great.
Good. Yeah. Awesome.
I think it's really interesting right now. And this is something that Alfred, you get a little preview, I think, of what I want to talk about in our next episode. So maybe I'm giving away the farm here, but I think that what's been really interesting over the past week or two is to see other parts of the country now reacting to Chicago thin crust's ascent into the spotlight. And this feeling, I think, of the Midwest in particular, of missing out on the acclaim and the notoriety that Chicago is now getting for thin crust, which is just, I think, really funny, but also very interesting and very telling about pizza culture, and not just about pizza culture, but culture and in general, and our thoughts about ourselves and our fellow Americans in the rest of the country. And that's part of what I really love about, I think what both Alfred and I both love about this podcast, is that looking at life through the lens of pizza. And Alfred would probably be the first person to tell me not to get too sanctimonious or up on my high horse about this. But I think that, we talked to Roy Wood Jr. about pizza, but he brings up race. We talked to Ali Velshi about pizza, but he brings up the immigrant experience. And Alfred, I think you have some specific thoughts on some of this too.
Well, I want to mention real quick to your point about Chicago, and this is something that I think about a lot when it comes to what pizza represents as a metaphor. So look at Chicago. What's the nickname? The Second City. Look at Chicago. Was usurped by Los Angeles, in the 70s, to be America's second biggest city. What does Chicago do? Build the biggest, tallest buildings. They build the Sears Tower.
Right.
They build McCormick Place, which is one of the biggest event centers.
And now it's sinking.
Everything is large. they have an inferiority complex. It is evident. We all do. Anyone from the Chicagoland area has a massive inferiority complex. They're not on the coast, but yet they have a lake that they think is a coast. And so their pizza is reflective in that. Look at the deep dish. What other place does a deep dish fit better than the city of big shoulders, Chicago?
Right. Oh, that's an excellent point. And you're right. Tavern style Chicago pizza has really made kind of a resurgence recently. I guess it's the new thing right now.
I mean, I think a lot of that can be I would attribute to Steve Dolinsky and the two books that he's written over the past couple of years about Chicago pizza, also the Pizza City Festival that he's founded in Chicago, which first year we went to and had a lot of fun, met a lot of great people, had a lot of great pizza. And then he launched that in Los Angeles and now is launching that in Memphis, Tennessee, I believe next year, and also has it upcoming again this year. Big ups and shout out to Steve Dolinsky. But I feel like he has a lot to do with, being so tapped into media and being on camera and being a television persona and being relentless with his own tours as well. Jonathan Porter, no lack of credit to him. Obviously, I have huge ups and respect for the work that he's been doing for his pizza tours for many years. And the pizza makers are themselves also, but I feel like, that's been part of it. And we've also been primed for this by the regional fascination of pizza wise of Detroit. And so, first we had this Detroit trend, and that kind of kicked off a lot more interest in other regional styles. And now we're talking about Chicago. And the question is, what's next?
Yes. Okay. That's a question. And who knows? But, you bring up a great point, which is if you travel across America, there are, I don't know, many regional styles. You talk about Detroit. We can talk about there's a St. Louis pizza. There's a San Francisco style or California.
What's San Francisco?
Oh,
style,
I don't know. I would say.
I want to know. No. I'm not trying to call you out. But it's just funny. No. The reason why I'm asking you this question is not to put you on the spot as much as it's come up. This is like two's a trend. It's now come up twice in 2 days, California style pizza. And I'm very interested in hearing your take or anybody's take here on what California style pizza is. Is California style pizza a commitment to fresh ingredients? Is California style pizza a fusion thing with that, it riffs off of the California Pizza Kitchen and Wolfgang Puck and Spago and all of that history? Is California style pizza? What is it? I want to know what it is because I've heard a bunch of people talk about it.
Let me just bring up a point, and that is the late great Ed Ledoux. I'm not sure you're familiar with him. Ed?
Yeah, 100%.
Ed, okay, so you know that Ed taught Wolfgang Puck how to make pizza.
Yeah.
So for me, if you say California style, it's Ed Ledoux. Ed Ledoux was a guy that put Thai chicken on a pizza. And I thought he was very innovative in what he did. So to be very succinct, I would say that's a style. For me,
I would agree with you. I would agree with you, Albert. But I think it's interesting because I don't know that that's necessarily what people now are associating with California style pizza. And this is me. Alfred's like his eyes are glazing over. I can tell probably as I talk about this. But I
answered a bunch of emails.
I feel like what's happened now is you have this. The ancient grains or the milling your own flour and this commitment to seasonal ingredients that is exemplified, I think, for a lot of people with Portland style pizza, and Modernist Pizza certainly has been one to talk about this. But that is probably, I think, what now some people are associating more with California style pizza than California Pizza Kitchen. So I think it's interesting I'm not trying to jump on you and put you on the spot as much as I'm trying to find out what the most accurate representation of California style pizza is really.
Yeah.
That's my question.
I don't have an answer for you, buddy. I mean, and I will also say, coming back to Ed Ledoux put the menu together for
Yep.
California Pizza Kitchen. So, I
Yep.
mean, I look at him as someone at the time, and you're right, many, many years ago, he was very innovative. He was doing things that no one else was doing. Anyway.
I familiarized myself with him mostly via when I was writing my book about Buffalo style pizza, and that's not Buffalo chicken, but Buffalo the city, which has its own style of pizza, because I was trying to figure out who did invent Buffalo chicken pizza.
Okay.
And it wasn't, I don't think it can be credited to him, but it took me
Okay.
on a wild journey across many decades, and I think we landed in Minnesota, was where I think it actually seems to have had the most chance of having originated. But anyway,
Okay, kind of like, I mean, I don't want to say this, but kind of like Hawaiian pizza, which I hate, has nothing to do with Hawaii. You know, has to do with pizza maker in Canada who invented it. But so,
well, this is a great segue. If I don't mean to try and take over your podcast, but I want to ask you, Albert, you are in Hawaii. You have thoughts about Hawaiian style
Lucky
pizza,
man.
and certainly, Alfred, we need this insight before we go into our topic on this, our discussion on this topic. So I would love to just hear you tell us, school us, please, on Hawaiian pizza and this controversy.
Oh no, okay, yeah, I'm can't remember the guy's name. Papadopoulos. He was a Greek guy from, you know, this is a true story. But, you know, I've been talking about pizza for many, many years. About 15, 16 years ago, I had a call from a Canadian TV show. And they said, hey, Albert, we're coming to Hawaii and we want to do a series on Hawaiian pizza. And I said, look, Hawaiian pizza has nothing to do with Hawaii. You know, yes, it has pineapple. And so I call it a pineapple pizza. There is no Hawaiian pizza. I mean, it doesn't exist, or it was created in Canada. I wish I could remember the guy's name, who invented it. And this, you know, sometime in the 60s, he put pineapple and
I think it's Sam Panopoulos.
Sam Panopoulos, unsung hero of the Hawaiian pizza. And so, yeah, no, there is no Hawaiian pizza. Although I will have to say, you know, 10 years ago, the best pizza in Hawaii was in my kitchen. Well, that's not the case anymore. There are a lot of great pizzas here in Hawaii, but has very little to do with Hawaii. A friend of mine, Matt, of Brickfire Tavern, had on his menu what he said the real Hawaiian pizza, and it had Kahlua pork. It had other veggies from Hawaii, everything locally sourced, and he called it the real Hawaiian pizza. And I would say that would probably be the closest. To take it to the other level, the number one product that everyone uses in Hawaii is Spam. And making pizza a number of times, people say, hey, Albert, put some Spam on. No, I'm not going to do it. Never going to happen. So I don't know. That's kind of my take on Hawaiian pizza. As I said, the pizza universe here in Hawaii has been elevated dramatically the last couple of years. A lot of artisans, they're really doing a phenomenal job with making some wonderful pies here.
This is, again, I'm just priming Alfred and I here to have this conversation down the road. And I'm so pleased to be able to have talked to you about this first together. But I want to just ask you, is there anything about using that terminology, Hawaiian also, that feels a little colonialist or pejorative? Is there anything that people in Hawaii who are not, you know, like white people, that also kind of rings false, or should be something that we should be considering when we say Hawaiian pizza? Or am I taking it too seriously?
I think you're taking it too seriously, buddy. I mean, you're overthinking this issue. I think anyway. No. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's kind of funny. I've said this before. Hawaii used to be a big pineapple state. There were, you know, there was an island of Lanai, now owned by Larry Ellison, which was full of pineapples. That's all they did. Pineapples have kind of deteriorated here in Hawaii. They're still growing a few, not to what they were. So you associate pineapples with Hawaii? No, I don't know. Maybe years ago, but not anymore. Although Dole Plantation does still have a presence here. The pineapples here are not as prolific as you would think. I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully. Let's lay it to rest. Let's talk about New York pizza. What are some of your favorite places in New York, Arthur and Alfred?
Alfred, what are your favorite places in New York or New Jersey?
Or New Jersey? Let's go. Let's
okay, New Jersey.
pizza.
I spent 11 years in Brooklyn, so I have certainly
Oh,
opinions
all
about
right.
that. But right now for New Jersey, I will say I live close to Star Tavern, and that's become a great stop with the family for sure. We've talked about sort of how people evolve. If you're single in the city, the slice shops are your go-to. But once you have a family, the sort of old school pizzerias, the taverns themselves are sort of your go-to and your default. So we've had a really good time at Star Tavern. But real quick, in terms of like Brooklyn and New York City, for me, I was so lucky when I ended up moving to Carroll Gardens, and we lived there for about 4 years, and we lived about 3 blocks from Lucali. We went once. We went once. And I will tell you, I thought it was overrated because of all the hoopla to get in. However, now here's how this is
Alfred's
when you're gonna get
throwing down.
This is when you're gonna get mad at me. During the pandemic, they easily offered pickups. So you would just call when it opened, I think at about 2:30, and you basically got through and you would order a pizza. Basically every other Friday, we have Lucali pizza. And I will tell you, I got to like it quite a bit.
Okay.
Quite a bit. So my first impression wasn't great. I started craving it, which is really, I mean, how spoiled am I?
Yeah.
So that place was ridiculous. Other than that, of course, Joe's, there's countless in New York City, but those are my 2 right now. I'll go with.
Yeah. Oh, those are great ones.
I think Lucali is a really interesting pizzeria to think about and to talk about because of the vibe that it has inside and the celebrities that are associated with that, and Mark's vibe and demeanor, and you could kind of make an argument, and I don't know if a lot of some other pizza writers or pizza thinkers in New York would think this way, but I kind of thought of him as like the Dom DeMarco kind of in waiting to some degree, before Dom passed away. And there's an element of Mark's personality, I think, and he can be very very funny but also very gruff, and he's done shows and stuff where you see that personality, and he's got this artist sensibility, but also like making pizza here, like why are you making such a big deal out of what I'm doing? But then also has become so well known that Dom didn't have, but also, there was this like looking up to him in some way. And I think it's really interesting. At the same time, you look at the methodology, at least as I understand it, that Mark uses, and when he makes pizza at Lucali, this is a pizza that's rolled out.
And, I know, right?
And a lot of people would say like, you don't do that. And like, he did it his way, and that's what it is. But like, a lot of people will be like, you don't do that. Like the whole thing is that you don't roll out the dough and you lose the air and everything else. And the crust is a very distinctive crust for a New York style pizza. This is more like pita than pizza, I would argue.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a very soft crust then.
It almost it's almost open and just folds open.
Wow.
At least in my experience. So
yes,
it's a very interesting pizzeria to talk about in that way, because you've got this like icon status, but at the same time, like, bucking tradition, and also like, is it for good or for bad? There's just a lot going on there. It's a fascinating place.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm just criticizing and talking about your place and having not even saying anything about mine. It's classic.
Yeah, that's great. New York's got some incredible pizza places, and thank God for Scott Wiener, who's opened my eyes and going on Scott's pizza tours many years ago. Boy, he has opened a whole book on New York pizza, which is amazing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would go so far as to say that Scott and Adam Cuban, the OG kind of pizza people in New York City, and what they've done to help encourage an interest both locally and across the country. And then, is amazing, and big shout out to both of them. I've read before I was even writing anything. I was reading what they were writing, and then I was linking to what they were writing, and I was trying to build on what they had written or elaborate on it or highlight it or whatever. So I look to those two as being two awesome figures on the pizza scene. And frankly, that's
Absolutely.
the reason how I ended up at Uni Pizza Ovens, was because of a referral from Scott Wiener. So I wouldn't have my job that I have now, most likely, except for, Scott made a referral, and the rest has kind of happened.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Shout out to, the rest of the country. There's a lot of good pizza in the rest of the country. And you have any other styles that kind of stand out to you? We've talked a little bit about Detroit, California. Anything else that kind of stands out in your mind?
I always love thinking about the slab slices up in Maine and Portland. I'm fascinated by bar pizzas. And again, shout out to Adam for him and his passion for that, because that's a big part of what has instilled that interest in me. I feel like the South Shore bar style pizzas are something that I'm really fascinated to explore. I haven't done that. I'm interested in exploring a lot more in New Jersey. I feel like that's a big hole in my game.
Absolutely.
100%. It's as Alfred has heard me say, I think it's the state that has some of the best pizza that's least talked about.
Yeah, that's very true. There's some great pizza makers there. The home of the tomato pie, which I'm sure you both have experienced.
I wish I had. I'm a novice to that concept.
Okay.
We got some places we got to recommend. We'll offline we can go through and talk.
Please
about
do.
Lorenzo's and whatnot. But there's Philadelphia tomato pie, Trenton tomato pie. You get the mustard. My favorite, which is at Papa's, which claims to be the oldest continuously held pizzeria in America, I believe, where they do the mustard pizza. So they do a layer of mustard on the base. I think it's Golden's it's supposed to always be. And then they put tomato sauce on top of that. And so it sounds weird. It sounds gross.
Sounds weird.
Tell you, try it.
I'd try it.
It boosts the vinegar, the acidic, like the tang factor. It just kind of boosts it. And as long as you don't put too much mustard, it's a really interesting flavor profile. I'm a little bent out of shape and have a chip on my shoulder about loving this pizza because the New York Times called it basically like eating a hot dog as a pizza. And it's just not right. It's just, you're wrong, New York Times. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, let's hear it for New York Times. Moving to Pennsylvania, have either of you had Old Forge pizza? Do you know about that?
I don't believe
place?
so.
Old Forge is one of the first regional places that I explored way back in like 2007, 2008. I have a picture of me that is a much thinner Arthur Bovino eating pizza in Old Forge, going to all of those big places. Here's another little shout out obsession. If we're talking about styles of pizza and talking about Old Forge, Moscow, Pennsylvania, not far from Old Forge. I don't know if you've heard of this one, but there is a Hagash style pizza.
I have.
I only learned about it because of Hawk Crawl, who is an illustrator and essayist food essayist who I am obsessed with, who I think just does awesome, amazing work, not just his artwork, but his writing. And he went on this pilgrimage to this place and wrote about it. And it made me rent a car, take a day off, drive 2.5 hours to have this in March when it was freezing cold, eating this pizza all by myself and then doing the whole thing on the way back. And it is, it's potato, it's cheese, it's just mashed potato, it's shredded. It's just so indulgent and delicious. It's so good.
Wow. The only time I've had a mashed potato pizza, I think, was at Bar Pizza in New Haven. One of my favorite pizza cities, of course. Pepe's, Sally's, Modern, and many other places, Zupardi's, Ernie's. Yeah. A lot of great pizza there in New Haven. I haven't heard you talk about New Haven pizza on your podcast. I'm hoping we're going to
it pops up.
You see,
it pops up.
I think it's funny though. Also, you're going to see. I know this is the New Yorker in me that is obsessed. And the media aspect of this being the center of the universe. But I think with Lala's, which is opening up in Brooklyn, the hottest pizza in New York City, Alfred, is Lala's is doing New Haven style of pizza. And once the New Yorkers kind of get reminded of something, they, I think, will obsess over it again, and that will ripple out and you'll start to see more places. But New Haven of pizza has been a trend over the past 15 years. I would say it's just kind of it crested and then Detroit kind of came over, and then Chicago. But I could see New Haven kind of flagging again. And you've got there's New Haven, a pizza schools that have started. Frank, I can't remember his last name off the top.
The Pizza
of my head.
Gavone.
The Pizza Gavone. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He's launched. He's
Frank
got a lot of
Zabisky,
interest.
yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
he's got a lot of interest in what he's doing, and I think you're going to see more of that. I could definitely see more New Haven pizza.
Yeah, I
definitely
love what he's doing.
When I was early in my New York City existence, I think when I was just dating my wife, a good friend of mine's from New Haven, and I was still in the, Chicago style is way better than New York style. While still appreciating it all, I still had that mindset. And I remember he was like, we're going to go to New Haven and we're going to try Frank Pepe's pizza. And I'd read it was the #1 pizza place. I'd seen the pictures and I thought, there's just no way this is going to be as good as reported. And I definitely, I had to eat my words. It was sensational. Yeah. It was sensational. And I've told, it was a stark reminder about how I can be very wrong. Frank Pepe's is, and I've not had the other New Haven pizzas, and I'm always up to try them, but that was truly incredible pizza.
Frank Pepe kind of really schooled me on the resonance of pizza in this country, and also from a personal standpoint, not that you asked, but kind of made me feel like, gave me my first, I like this, all these food writing risks that I have taken have paid off. When I was driving up from New York years ago, and we're talking like 2000, I don't know, 7 or 8 or something like this. Maybe 10, I don't know. Yeah, like at least a decade ago. I was driving up the side of the road. I looked over on the highway and I saw a billboard, and the billboard was for Frank Pepe, and it said voted #1 best pizza in America, the Daily Meal. And my name wasn't on this billboard, but I was like, wait a second, I did that piece.
That's
right.
That's Arthur Bovino.
Piece.
This
that's a billboard
best pizza list. Yeah,
I was like, okay, maybe this risk has paid off.
Yes, it certainly has. I have to say, I mean, growing up kind of close to New Haven, I didn't discover New Haven pizza till much later in life. But what I think is amazing about New Haven are the fans. Not so much anymore where Pepe's has really been hyped, but prior to that, you would wait in line an hour or two just to get inside. Yeah. And it was a daily occurrence. They have since opened it up. I believe at one point they weren't open for lunch. Now they're open for lunch. And let's face it, Frank Pepe has gone corporate. So there are several different locations across the East Coast. I think there's one in Florida, but the pizza fans in New Haven are like no other. They are more obsessive than anywhere else, and they will fight about it. There's a movie, I'm sure you've seen it, Pizza: A Love Story, which features the three, the holy trinity of pizza in New Haven: Pepe's, Sally's, Modern. Great movie, but there's a lot of other New Haven pizza places, pizza styles in that area. So that's great.
It's my first and only IMDb credit. It being the intro voice to that movie.
Oh God, fantastic!
I didn't even know that.
No, we got a movie star in our midst.
Oh yeah,
wow.
big time.
Man,
is that why you're on strike now?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit and finish up about the Pizza Pod Party podcast. One of the things, I mean, I mentioned it to you earlier, Alfred. Technically, it's just amazing. I mean, the flow.
That's very kind.
Really good. I mean, the audio is just incredible, and how you go from piece to piece to piece. You got a little pizza news stuff in there. You got some bizarre pizza stories. The ice cream Japanese Aoki's pizza, which is, on the fondue pizza. I think I did a little video on it. Amazing. I can't, that kind of stuff. I loved the story that Ron Wood was talking about, how pizza saved his life. That's on your first episode, which is just amazing. I mean, that is a great story. The guys, I think it happened in San Francisco where he's dealing with Yakuza. This guy
allegedly.
What a story. And the pizza did save his life. The guy looked down, hey, great pizza. So you got some great episodes coming on. You got some great stuff going on.
Thank you, Alfred.
What is
Albert.
what is the heart and soul of the Pizza Pod Party podcast? In an elevator speech, what would you call it,
Alfred?
I think that it is about how culture, you can use certain popular elements of culture that are sort of metaphors for a larger discussion. And that's what pizza is, I think. We've discussed it throughout our conversation here. And I think that with Arthur's credibility and my radio experience, podcast experience, whatever you want to call it, I'm just sort of trying to wrangle it all together. The combination of all of those things, it's supposed to be one thing, which is a fun conversation about pizza. And ideally, it becomes a way larger discussion. It is a showcase of debates with high passions, low stakes. It is a discussion about immigration. It is a discussion about nostalgia. It is a discussion about passions and sort of why do we love something? How do we verbalize our love for anything? And I think roll all those things together, that's sort of what it is. And the sort of the elements of the show are there so it can evolve too. It's meant to be, the purpose of the show is that the first episode should sound very different in a lot of ways than the last episode, because the show's supposed to be, the rules are put in place so that they can be broken at any time. I think that's one of the things that I really latched onto, and it's become a passion project because I think there's so much there.
Okay. So the rules are, there are no rules. And that's what I like about it. There's nothing off the table, which I'm just amazed at.
Yeah.
It's everywhere, which is fantastic.
Thank you.
I want to thank you guys for spending a little bit of time
man.
with me. I really, really appreciate it. We had some technical issues at the beginning, but it worked out okay.
Oh,
Arthur, thank you so much. You got any final words for us?
No, I just think that, thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Yes.
You're somebody that I've looked to, for expertise going back over the years, and followed what you've been doing and what you've been talking about. And so it's a thrill to be on here talking with you. I think that the only other thing is I think about when I think about pizzas and looking for the best slice is, I always think of the next slice that I want to, final thoughts wise, is the next slice. The best slice is always the slice that I most want to eat again.
That's right.
Before I've even finish the one that I'm on. That's the best slice for me. That's my final thought for you today.
That is great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Alfred. Thank you, Arthur. Really appreciate
Albert,
it.
I'm privileged to be here. I don't deserve to be here. I'm just a fan. So you two are the real pizza experts. I'm just the snarky guy in the background, but I really appreciate you taking time to put any kind of spotlight on this project, and honored to be in your presence.
All the best, and snark on, please. We love you guys. I think you're going to do really well. And
thank you so much.
All the best.
That's so nice.
Take care. Pizza on Earth.
You too.